friends. We're glad you're here.
Welcome to the Present Matters podcast. I am your co-host, Andrew.
And I'm your co-host, Kassie.
Today's episode, we are going to be going over the outlook on relationships when you are a product of divorce. And
Yes.
Just like we mentioned last episode, we probably will derail every now and again and go off on some tangents. But that is going to be the overarching story or topic that we're going to be going over. I realized on the last one I talked a lot, and so I'd really like you go over kind of the high level view of what we're going to be going over.
So I was the one that kind of wanted to talk about this topic because it's something that I really struggled with after the childhood with the divorce and the aftermath of that. So basically, I want to talk about trust issues that came from it and just like the really negative outlook I had on relationships, specifically like romantic relationships, after growing up with a quote unquote broken family. So just kind of that kind of stuff. And then also how I've kind of worked on overcoming that and getting past it instead of just wallowing in it.
Yeah, and I will say, to start off, I want to mention that even though our upbringing wasn't like the greatest, like by any stretch of the imagination, it wasn't like everyone's traumas or everyone's traumas that they've had in the past isn't like a competition. Right. There's different forms of it, and just because like for starters, like we weren't physically abused. We
always had food,
but just because we weren't, like we were taken care of and whatnot. But that doesn't subtract from what we went through, and also it doesn't subtract from the people who do go through those things on a daily basis.
I'm really glad you brought that up because I think that's something that doesn't get talked about enough, and it's people always feel like, oh, well, it could have been worse. And while that is true, that doesn't mean that what we went through wasn't still hard. It wasn't still traumatic. So I think it's important to keep that in mind.
Exactly. I guess we can go over kind of why we're talking about this, because our parents are divorced and their relationship was, I don't think we have like very many, I don't know about you, but I honestly can't think of any memories that were good.
Involving the two of them, you mean?
Yeah. Well, no, I haven't had any good memories ever. No, I mean, yeah, like as a family, I didn't finish that sentence. As a family, like, just the four of us together.
Yeah, I don't think so either.
Like, I don't have a single memory.
I don't think I do either. Like, I think all of my memories in England, like, not even just happy, but like literally don't involve the four of us. It's either like you and I with mom or you and I with dad. Like, I don't really have any memories of like the four of us together as a family.
Or doing anything, yeah.
Yeah.
Which is like not something I've ever thought about until just now, because I've kind of always just thought of them as separate.
Because it feels like it always has been, yeah.
And so, yeah, it's really interesting to look back and see that. But so they weren't the greatest pairing. And even when we moved to the U.S., like as we mentioned last time, they almost immediately separated. And the times that they were together, it was very argumentative from my memories.
So much yelling.
Yeah, so like growing up and only seeing that, of course, until they separated, and the divorce is its own thing. The way that they kind of used us to fight each other and to get the upper hand on each other really affected my perspective on life in general. But I know mom, she didn't date for like ever. Like she didn't. Yeah, well, at least that she showed us.
Yeah,
I'm
I
sure
think she specifically
met
talked
people
about that being like a thing for her, was that she wasn't going to introduce anyone into our lives until it was like actually serious. And I remember there was one guy before Art, who was our stepdad. Mm-hmm. His name was Greg, I think. I don't know, but he was the first one that she told us about. And we still never met him, but she told us like, oh, it's like possibly getting serious. I'm dating this guy, whatever. But we never met him either. So we never met anyone that she was dating until Art, who she's married to now. So
Yeah, I have vague memories of Greg. You bringing up his name, I
Yeah.
was like, I feel like I remember him, but I don't
No,
have
we
any
didn't
like
meet him.
recollection of ever meeting him. So I was really confused. But then you said we didn't meet him.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, cool. Yeah. So mom didn't really bring anyone into our lives until
Yeah.
Art, who, as you mentioned, is our now stepdad. But dad,
Almost the
like
opposite.
I almost the opposite. There was a lot of females that were. I don't have an exact number, but I think I can recall like 2 or 3. They never lived with us, but it was like they would. One I remember flew out from like the East Coast
Oh, I
and
remember
stayed like
that.
2 weeks with us,
Judy.
and she
I feel
bought me
like it was
drumsticks.
Judy.
Judy, yeah, wow,
I'm
you
good at
remember her
names.
name? Yeah, she bought me my first
Wow.
drumsticks. And because I said I wanted to be a drummer, and I remember like dad and her talking online like through the webcam and stuff for, I don't know, a couple weeks or months. Time
Weird when
is,
you're a kid. Yeah.
it was weird when you're a kid, yeah. And then she flew out, and like everything was great. Like it seemed like, wow, like this girl is awesome, and she loves us, and we're like, it's like a weird family situation going on, even though it's only like 2 weeks. And then we just never heard from
Yeah.
her again. Don't know what happened there, but I can only imagine.
Yeah. I also remember there being a couple of other women that I don't know if it's just because I was young and didn't understand how like adult relationships worked, but I remember you telling me like later in life, like, oh yeah, remember that girl that was like one of dad's girlfriends. And I was like, I thought she was just like some random lady that would like come over. Like I didn't understand that they
So-
were like in a relationship.
Oh, that's such a weird
Yeah.
dynamic. Just some random lady
I was
comes
like,
over and spends
okay.
2 weeks with
Well, no,
us.
no,
And
no.
then...
Her, I remember it being like a relationship, but there were other ones
Oh, okay,
that
but
I
other
like we would
ones,
go
yeah,
see them and
yeah,
stuff, and
yeah,
I'd be like, oh, this is just dad's friend. Like I didn't understand that like it was a
like totally
relationship.
just
Yeah.
friends. And I guess it would be or benefit the listener to know that for the majority of this, like when the divorce happened, our mom showed up at our house's doorstep with like 2 or 3 cops, and was like, pack your bags, we're leaving. And we didn't know what the hell
Yeah.
was going on. It was, mom disappeared, and then she came
That was
back, and
honestly like one of the most dramatic moments of my life because I was in like what second or third grade.
you
Like
were
I did
tiny.
not, I was terrified. I
Yeah,
did not understand what was happening. I was so scared. Yeah.
yeah, and like we stayed at one of mom's friends'
Condos. Yes.
condos for, I don't know how long. It felt like forever, but it was probably only
I
a couple
don't, yeah, no
months.
concept of how long it was.
Maybe a year at most. Yeah, me either. And after that, my memory's kind of fuzzy, but essentially we ended up moving back in with dad, or like we were on visitation or something, or we were like 50-50 at first. I don't remember. But I do remember like we stayed at dad's because we would. This is when we lived
Yes.
at our old place,
Yes.
not where he's currently
I
living.
think we had visitation at first because and it was like supervised visitation. Do you remember that lady from the court that had to like,
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
and I think after like, yeah, I think after
Still
that
with us
was like,
everywhere.
okay, then we were allowed to have like actual like time with him, like living 50-50. But I'm not 100% clear on the timeline of that. But
Yeah. It's all kind of a blurry mess. And honestly, like it was around this time because like I shortly went into middle school after all this happened, because we moved to the U.S. When I joined. I
Yeah.
started the 4th grade, which means that you would have been
first,
in the
yes, I was in first grade
right?
when we moved here.
Yeah. And so all that happened, and I have little to no memories of middle school,
Wow.
like at all. Like it's just a void in my memory.
And that's for me, like the whole elementary school, very, very little memory, like scattered little moments, but like don't remember most of it.
Mm-hmm. There was so much happening. We were constantly changing houses. We were talking to new people. There was like therapists and heavy quotations on therapists.
Court mandated.
Because like they were trying to manipulate us to like incriminate our dad, and some were trying to help. Like I have been to so many therapists in my life. It's absurd. I think only one of which I actually wanted to go see. That like I decided I
Yeah.
wanted to go see. And so like all of this and just having no structure to what a relationship is supposed to be like. And honestly, that's kind of a vague thing. Like, what is a relationship? I mean, there's the traditional household, but that's not really a necessity anymore. Like, you don't need a man and a woman and kids to make it be like a household, but at least having a stable partnership between people, or at least just a stable one person.
Yeah, like, and I think that, because even if we move past like the divorce and stuff, then like our dad got married a second time to our ex-stepmom because he's not married to her anymore, thank goodness. And that was not a good relationship either. Like, that was a really unhealthy.
It was, and then it wasn't.
Oh, it was healthy.
It started off great.
Yes. And it started off healthy, with like, I really connected with her, and like our mom is not super girly and I am. And so Sarah was, so I kind of got that side of me to like have a role model because like I said, mom wasn't. So I got someone that like got to show me how to do my hair and do makeup and things like that. But then, yeah, it went downhill real fast. And the relationship between the two of them was like not good at all. Like he almost, yeah, I don't know. It was just not good.
Yeah, no, that devolved rather quickly. And I think this is my own opinion. This isn't, I won't say it's reality because it's just from my perspective. But I feel like the way dad was not the way, well, no. There was probably a lot of things behind the scenes that were going on because she was doing a lot of the stuff with him. I'm not going to get into specifics because that's
too personal.
That's a little out of bounds. But yeah, they were into a lot of the same things. But I think there was a lot of what dad is currently doing. And none of this is illegal. I just want to say, none of this stuff's illegal. It's just his personal preference. Yeah, he just wasn't with someone that accepted all of what he is, and I think that kind of warped and messed with their head, which we were there to take it out on.
Yeah, I was just gonna say she then decided to take it out on us, and I think, I mean, I don't know if you agree with this, but from my perspective, at least. She specifically took it out extra hard on me because I think, and not necessarily always in like a super negative way, but like the effects were negative. So for example, I always felt like she used me as like her Barbie doll. Like she controlled me. So there were times like I had trauma around cutting my hair for a long time because she forced me to like chop it to my chin when I was in 8th grade. And I was mortified because I love my long hair. And I
remember you with the Karen haircut.
Yeah, and
that's the haircut she had.
She made me like dye it darker because I don't know why, but I love my blonde hair, and she made me dye it darker, and she made me get a second piercing in my ears that I didn't want. Like I was her Barbie doll, and I was like, she manipulated me and controlled me, and I don't think her intention was ever to like harm me, but that was what the effect was. So I think she took it out harder on you in terms of like actual intent for harm. But for me, it was more, this is his daughter, but she's my Barbie doll and I'm going to do whatever I want with her.
And to bounce back on, not bounce back, but to continue on to what you said, like maybe it was more intent towards me and less intent towards you. I don't have a fear, but I like have like a hatred of cleaning bathrooms.
Yes.
Because of her.
Oh my God, the bathrooms.
And like Megan cleans bathrooms because of her. Like she knows what I went through.
Yes.
And like it was just such a weird thing to like be so harsh on.
Well, I think that goes back to like I couldn't think this then, but now my adult brain can. That's how her mom was with her. Because you remember, like her mom and dad would come visit, and she would be like, my mom is going to come around with a white glove and like touch everything. And yeah, so I think that was like her trauma that she was then bleeding into us because she hadn't healed from it. So because I have a very specific memory of like spending hours cleaning my bathroom because I knew how she was. And then she came upstairs.
Likewise.
I forgot the mirror. One thing, literally just forgot to do the mirror, which I still forget to do the mirror in my bathroom constantly. I don't know why. But she came in, looked at the mirror, and just assumed that I hadn't cleaned it at all and started screaming at me and like
Mm-hmm.
berating me and telling me I was the worst ever because how dare I not clean the bathroom after she had asked. And I was trying to be like, no, like I did clean it. I just forgot the mirror. Like, let me go. And she was like, clean it all again, blah, blah, blah. And yep. So I understand totally the bathroom cleaning thing.
Yes. We both had very, very similar
Yeah.
experiences with that. It's like, you're the worst person in the world. I just asked you to do one simple thing. You didn't do it. It's like, have you looked at anything else? Like, I missed one spot, but what about
Right.
the
Everything
rest
else
of
is
it?
sparkling.
No, I didn't do anything.
Yeah.
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 And so just shout out to my wife for cleaning bathrooms because
Yeah.
I hate it.
Not shout out to my husband because I clean the bathrooms, but you know, it's
Aw.
okay.
Oh,
Yeah.
I still love him. And I do want to point out that Sarah was younger than we are now when she took us on.
Is that real life?
She was in her, I would probably say mid-20s when she was young.
I'm just
She
like
was
really
young.
processing that. That's nuts.
Yeah. Think of yourself like 4 years ago and then having 2 kids.
That are not blood related to me. Yeah.
Yeah, and having no, like, you're still kind of in, she was a partier, so she's still in her party phase. She now has 2 kids, a
A
husband,
whole house and
whole house.
wow.
Yeah. So it's like, I've definitely forgiven her. It's not, I think, I hope she's changed and grown since then. But I feel like if I saw her on the street, I wouldn't hesitate to, like, start, like, a casual conversation and catch up. But I'm not sure if she
Right,
would
yeah.
be open to that.
Yeah, I agree. I agree.
hope she
I
would be.
used to feel a lot of anger and resentment towards her. But yeah, I think my adult brain has been able to process through that and like look at some of the stuff surrounding like what she was going through and understand like it doesn't excuse what she did. It doesn't excuse the way she treated us, but I think it makes it make more sense to me and makes it feel like it wasn't me, which is really the healing that I needed is like I didn't cause her to act like that.
Mhm.
I didn't do anything wrong. I was a child, you know, that it like her own stuff was going on and she just wasn't dealing with it in healthy ways.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. And it's just unfortunate that we
Right.
so happen to just be there all the time to have it
Yeah.
be taken out on.
And then mom, so her and Art didn't actually get married until I was a senior in high school. I think because they were both married before and so they just didn't feel any need to like rush into it. So he like moved in with us, but they weren't actually officially married. But anyway, their relationship was fine. However, I think because of the trauma that I came with, like talking to me specifically, because we all know that I was more of a hot mess than you were in high school. But like when we moved in with them full time, which was my freshman year of high school, I was
Mhm.
so out of control because I just had no idea how to deal with all of the trauma that I had gone through. And so
And your chemical imbalances that you
right,
had no
yeah,
idea existed.
I have an anxiety disorder that was undiagnosed. So yeah, it was a lot. But I think that put a strain on their relationship. And so like that also, I don't know, like that also in high school at least wasn't a good example of a relationship for me just because like all I saw was him not knowing how to deal with me, her not knowing how to deal with me, and them kind of, yeah. Basically, I caused problems.
There was tension.
And then,
Yeah.
yeah. So all that to say that I just think that at least through high school, there was no solid example of what a partnership looks like for me.
Mm-hmm. I definitely hear that. And with that said, I did take notes
To keep
for
us
the
on
listeners,
track.
so that way it's not a wild ride like last time. So, how have you overcome those viewpoints after having nothing but kind of bad influences?
So the biggest thing for me was acknowledging, first of all, why I had these viewpoints because trust was a huge thing for me. I really, really struggled with trust. So I don't think I've said this on here yet, but my husband, my current husband, was my high school sweetheart. So we've been together since I was 16 and he was 15. So he kind of has been through all of this with me, not all of it, but a lot of it with me. And It's honestly a miracle that he stayed with me because when I was working through all of it, like in high school, and I had really bad trust issues, like I was like, he's going to cheat on me. He's going to decide he doesn't love me anymore and leave me. He's going to like all these things. And he's like, I'm giving you no reason to think that these things are true, but yet you still think them. And so acknowledging like Justin himself has nothing to do with why I feel this way. It has to do with all of the other stuff that I've dealt with. So that was like kind of my first step. And then as I got older and I went back into therapy, like after college, I kind of was able to work through where all of this insecurity in relationships was coming from. Because for me, that has been the biggest struggle with relationships is insecurity. Again, in terms of like, he's going to decide he doesn't love me and he's going to leave me. I'm going to like have an anxiety attack one too many times and he's going to be like, I'm done. That's it. You're crazy. Because I've just seen so much in my life of like relationships ending. And so that was really hard for me. But again, I had to just kind of figure out like where it was coming from within me and heal from it that way and not just keep pushing it on Justin and being like, oh, he's going to leave me. He's going to leave me, whatever. And then another big thing that helped me was love languages. So, yes.
That's a big one.
So I have no idea how I like first heard about them, but learning about the love languages and learning about what my love languages were for both receiving and giving love and learning what Justin's were, my husband, for both giving and receiving helped a lot because it helped me understand why he wasn't loving me in the way that I wanted him to love me. And helped him understand too, like why I wasn't feeling loved because I feel love differently than he gives it. He's a really physical touch person. And sometimes I'm like, don't touch me. I don't want you to touch me right now. And I'm more of a words of affirmation and acts of service person for how I receive it. So and we're still navigating that. It's hard when you have two totally different love languages to navigate. Like, I want to love you the way that I want to show love, but I also need to love you in your love language. So, yeah, things like that have really helped. And also just being with Justin for so long and just like going through it with him and learning and growing in my own way of like my relationships don't have to look how my parents' relationships did, and they shouldn't because obviously, as we've said, it wasn't good. So just letting go of that and saying like, I can decide for myself and with my partner how we want our partnership and our relationship to work. Yeah, that was a lot of, and I feel like I just made it sound like, oh, I just magically like came to this conclusion, but it was a lot of hard mental work to get through and a lot of hard work with Justin and I to like, because he did grow up with really good examples. Like his grandparents have been married for like 50 bajillion years and they're still like madly happily in love. And his parents are still together and still madly happily in love. And like he's had all these different role models of this is what a good partnership looks like. And so he's had to adjust to me needing to go slower with that of like, dude, why do you think I'm going to leave you every 5 seconds? Like, I love you. We're great, whatever. So, but it's also been helpful to see that. So I've now spent almost 11 years around his parents and around his grandparents. And so I've gotten to see some of that too. So yeah, a lot of mental work, basically.
It is. And relationships are two-way streets. And
yes.
I appreciate you mentioning that your love languages are like on opposite ends of the spectrum.
Yes.
Because it goes to show, don't be discouraged if you have conflicting love languages. Relationships aren't only possible when you have the same love languages. Yes, they're easier.
Yes.
And I can attest to that because Megan and I, my wife, we don't have every same love language, but like our biggest ones are the same.
Physical touch.
Yeah, physical touch. It's pretty much the big one. Yeah. No, that's the big one. Yeah. But like I have words of affirmation. Like I constantly tell her that I love her and that I appreciate all the stuff she's doing. But she doesn't necessarily have that, and so she works to make sure that like she does that for me. Yeah. And then another big one for her is gift giving.
Mm-hmm.
I suck at gift giving. I've had to make a list of like when she mentions things, she's like, "Oh, look at this." It's like, "Oh, I gotta write this down real quick," because I won't remember. I
But
know.
that's like you doing the work.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
and that's what relationships are. It doesn't matter what level of languages you have. What matters is the effort you put into it.
Exactly.
And you have to put an effort. You can't be lazy. If you have conflicting love languages and you don't put an effort, you're constantly going to be in conflict because you're refusing to show them that you love them.
Right. And I think this is a good like caveat. Caveats probably me not the right word, but whatever. Because when we say relationships, like most of this episode is talking about specifically romantic relationships, but the love language thing specifically applies to any kind of relationship. So you said that one of yours is words of affirmation, and that is one of my biggest ones too. And you are really, really good. Like you really just like light that fire in me because you'll text me and it's like this whole long thing about how amazing I am and how you love me and I inspire you and stuff. And it just like hits all those buttons for me. I'm like, oh yes, I feel so loved. I love it. So it's like when your love languages do line up like that, it's like kind of magical because you're like,
It is.
yes, perfect. But yeah, it applies to like every situation. So I've even had these conversations with my coworkers and found out like, oh, this coworker really likes gifts. So when I give him like even just a piece of chocolate, he like lights up. He's like, oh my God, thank you so much. And then another one that is words of affirmation like me. So I'm like, you're doing amazing. Like you are so good for these kids. You're making a difference. And that like really works for her. So even like in our group of coworkers, we've talked about love languages to help strengthen those relationships. So it's relationships in general, knowing love languages. Like I think sometimes people think it's, oh, that's just a cheesy thing, whatever. But like it legitimately helps make connections stronger.
Yeah, and you brought up a good point that we mentioned relationships, and we have been giving a lot of examples of like romantic relationships. But as I like alluded to earlier, like what even is a relationship? There's so many different facets. But like this applies to every relationship.
Right.
A relationship isn't strictly romantic. It is your built upon foundation with people.
Yeah.
And love languages with just your friends may seem like questionable. Like, well, I don't love them, but like you should.
Yeah.
You should. Like it may not be like, you know, I want to spend the rest of my life with you and like hold hands and do it like, but like you can love them.
Yeah.
And like love their company and still get similar like emotional feedback. And I think that's a big problem with guys.
Yes.
And there's like this whole, not culture war, it's not a thing, like gender war of like men are losing their masculinity or whatnot. And like while I do feel there's some aspect to that's kind of true-ish, very loosely, it's not bad. Like why do we have to hold on to like I love abusing women and being strong and by like picking up heavy things and putting them down and like it, being in touch with who you are and what you enjoy and expressing love to those around you just makes you feel more whole.
Yeah. And I'm a huge believer and like advocate almost for saying I love you to those people. Because I feel like outside of blood family members, it's almost like people feel weird about it saying I love you.
Yeah.
I freaking throw that out to like if I genuinely love someone, which is, you know, my friends and stuff, I will text them, I love you. Okay, see you tomorrow. Love you. Because this world is crazy and you never know what can happen. And
It is.
also it just feels good. It feels good to hear that and know that like I have all of these people around me that love me. So throw it out there. Just tell everybody you love them. Well, only if you actually do. Don't just like, hey, random stranger, I love you. That's weird, but
what movie is that? I feel like I love you too, random citizen. Was that Megamind?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a little too far for me, but like, the people who you have genuine relationships in your life, tell them you love them. Tell them you care about them. Tell them they matter to you. Because
And figure out what makes them happy.
Yes.
Talk with them. Communicate.
Make the effort. Make the effort.
Yes. All right. And with that in mind, we have 2 new segments that we want to introduce into the format of things. And we're going to start off with the one that's going to emphasize a little bit more with Cassandra, because she is the bookworm. I do read, but I don't read nearly as much as she does. So we're going to have the first installation of the book corner.
Yes. I love that we call it the book corner. It just sounds so cozy.
It does.
So I kind of have 2 books that I want to briefly talk about, and they both kind of relate, which I will say that for this segment, the books that I talk about won't always necessarily relate to the topic. Sometimes they're just going to be books that I have like resonated with me. But the first book is called Adult Children of Emotionally Immature Parents, How to Heal from Distant, Rejecting, or Self-Involved Parents. So I'm not going to go too much into like why specifically I read this book and like what this did for me specifically, because I think, again, that is a little bit too personal. But I strongly recommend this book if any of this stuff having to do with relationships resonated with you, because this book helped me understand my parents better and understand how the way that they raised me, the way that they interacted with the world helped shape my own interactions with the world, and my relationships with other people. So yeah, that's a good one for that. That's more of like a self-help book, basically. And then the other one, I actually haven't finished it yet, and I'm already going to recommend it because I love it. And it's from one of my favorite people. So I love Michelle Obama. Love her. If you have ever read her book, Becoming, then you will also like this one, because Becoming was amazing. So this one is called The Light We Carry. And this one is more focused on, it's sort of like a self-help book too, but it's focused on how do you find the light in people and how do you help bring that out of them and how do you give them your light in return, because the world that we live in is nuts and crazy and can be really hard sometimes. And so finding and fostering relationships with people that are a light for you and that you can be a light for them is really important. And she talks a lot about that and how to do that, because a lot of times, especially in today's age, she talks about with like after COVID and with all the technology that gets in the way of how to still foster those relationships and create those relationships, which I think is fitting for this topic because, again, what like we talked about, it's not just romantic relationships. Like relationships in general can be a really, really good support for you in your life. And so how do you foster those? How do you bring out other people's light and give them your own light? So there's some quick plugs for some really good books on relationships.
Yeah, those are good. And the way you were describing like you have a light in you and like how you can share it with others, I think reflects really well with the love languages.
Yeah.
It's like, you know, making that connection and how can you share that and spread that with others, because like, I mean, you know, the whole basis of this podcast is like influencing those around you and influencing the now to better tomorrow.
Yeah.
It's what you do with those around you and those closest to you will spread. Like hatred spreads, but love spreads as well.
Yeah.
And why choose to hate when you can love?
Exactly. Yeah. And like I said, I think Michelle Obama does a really great job of talking about not just how you spread your own light, but how you like recognize and draw out the light of others too. Like help them see in themselves that they have light too. Mm-hmm. So then it's like more than just I'm spreading my light around, but I'm helping other people spread their light around. So then it's light and great and happy and sunshine and rainbows.
That's what we call exponential growth. Because if they take those practices and implement them in their lives, you know. And it's always, I kind of want to expand on that just a little bit. Because I find it interesting where it's like there has to be a certain mindset in people that stops them from spreading it. Because like you read the book, and so you know, like you've internalized it. And you want to implement that and show others that they have a great light in them that they can spread and whatnot. But what stops that from continuing? Like there's so many books and like seminars and people who preach just that like you have so much good in you and you can do so good. Like why? I wonder why that doesn't propagate.
That question, I think about that a lot, honestly, because, and sometimes I get like almost frustrated about it.
Yeah.
Because it's even like in the same vein, like when I read educational books, like professional development books for me for teaching,
Mm-hmm.
like I read them with the intent of then like implementing that stuff in my classroom. And a lot of teachers don't do that. So I'm like, what's the point of reading it? You know, like there's books that so I call them brain candy. There's brain candy books that are just for fun, but then there's like the meat and
Mm-hmm.
potato books that are like there to help you better yourself or gain knowledge or like spark ideas, whatever. So to me, it's like you need a balance of the two, but why are you even bothering to read the meat and potato books if you have no intention of doing anything with that, you know? So I don't know what the
Mm-hmm.
answer is, but yeah.
So I feel like I recently have stumbled across something that can shed some light onto it. I mean, not everything has like a clear answer. This is from TikTok. I have not done a deep dive on this person, so I guess take this with a grain of salt. But they claim on TikTok that they are a behavioral scientist. I don't remember if if they have a master's or a PhD, but their whole TikTok is essentially about the brain and like neuroscience. And she was mentioning that it's really easy for the brain to keep doing what it's doing. It takes no extra energy to just not implement anything and just keep on going on with your life how it's currently going and accepting the current truths. But it takes a lot more effort to change something or to implement something. And so like if you're told something that differs from your previous truths, but is like provided with sufficient, data to override your current belief, it then takes extra work for your brain to make those new connections and those new wirings to actually have that be your new truth. And so like it's just easier for people's brains to just, oh wow, that was cool, I didn't know that was a thing, and then just continue on with their life.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it does take effort to like actually take the things you read and do something with them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so make the effort. And as someone with ADHD, which is going to be a great segue into our next segment, but as someone with ADHD, it is very difficult to do things that don't give you dopamine.
Yes.
Very difficult. Like, I suck at putting things in the dishwasher. The dishwasher will be dirty. Put it in the sink. It's so much quicker. Don't have to worry about finding space. Don't have to open up the door. It takes like 2 seconds, but there's so many steps.
Yes.
And it takes so much effort for me to be like, okay, rinse off the dish, put it in the dishwasher. But you have to repeatedly do it in order for that habit to be formed and have it to be normal. But yeah, so
I feel like
it's not impossible, but it's difficult.
I feel like that's become like our mantra for this episode, our theme for this episode. It's just like make the effort. Just make the effort.
Make the effort. It's worth it.
Yes.
It's hard, but it's worth it.
Yes.
Okay. And with that, we will next time I'll have a book. I have a book that I can go over, but we're running short on time, so I'll do my book next time.
Okay.
And then you can also have some depending on time, but So with that being said, we'll go into our next segment, which is going to be more of a question. Like, what was your hyper focus? I want to say this week, but it's bi-weekly, so I don't know how to phrase that. What was your hyper focus in the past 2 weeks?
Or just like recently. You can say recently.
Yeah. Well, let's just say recently. What was your hyper focus recently? And if you don't mind, I will start off with this one.
Yeah, go for it.
Because this is recently, like things happened recently, but it's also something that's been on my mind for maybe a month or two. I'd say 2 months. 2 months. So there's been a whole debate and argument online and within the art community. There's a little something called AI art that has been pissing off a lot of traditional artists.
I saw you post this.
And for good reason.
You posted this on Instagram.
Yeah, so Yeah, so I finally got around to doing it. And I've been just messing around with the generator, the AI generator, Midjourney, for a little over 2 months now. Just messing around with things, and they are angry for a good reason. I understand, because like there's someone submitted a purely AI generated art. Like they just typed in and they were given an image, and they submitted that image to a competition, like a pretty well renowned competition, and won
Wow.
by doing no work aside from typing out a prompt.
Yeah, can you explain briefly a little bit more about what you mean when you say AI art?
Yeah, so there's multiple. The two big ones are Midjourney and Dolly 2. And essentially what you do is you type in a prompt to this program, and the prompt could just be like a sentence or just even a singular word. You can honestly just type in a string of random numbers and letters, and you'd get something really weird. Like it, essentially, what the AI does is it takes your prompt. You can get really fancy. You can add parameters and like specific things like aspect ratios, or there's certain ways to get different styles. Like I really like the Art Nouveau style. So like you can type out a prompt and then a comma and do like Art Nouveau, or like, and there's certain ways you like implement the styles, and you just hit enter, and the AI will generate 4 low resolution previews of that prompt. And it just like scours the internet for these images. It learns, and it generates what you type. And it's come a long way. And like some of these things are crazy realistic. And like you can type absurd things and they're so realistic. There are certain things that are difficult, like hands. Like all the hands are always like 6 or more fingers and all over the place, or just like a ball of mush. Like AI can't do hands yet. We're not there yet. So if you're ever looking at art and you're not sure if it's AI generated or not, look at the hands. If they're real wonky, it's probably AI. And so the art community is like rushing to, like, they're not trying to shut down these programs, but there's a lot of, not laws, but like internal rules and whatnot to these competitions, and like galleries, and even like stock photography sites are like implementing rules to where like you can't submit AI generated art, because it would just be inundated with this art. And you can create like really realistic things by just typing out words. And so I have spent the past couple months messing around with this. And I started before DALL-E was public. And so I went over to Midjourney, which is implemented through Discord. Like I do all my generations through Discord. And it's I think it has multiple purposes. It is great for inspiration. If you don't know what to make, you can just type out random things, like a cat flying through space with a Superman outfit, like, and it will generate that. But like it gives you like 4 previews, and like you can type out anything, and it can like fire up inspiration in your mind. Like you can see things that you couldn't see before. This AI will just throw it out to you, and you're like, oh. And so what I wanted to do was I wanted to mix my photography with the AI art, because as cool as the AI art is itself, I don't put any effort into that. Like I put in numbers and words, and it gives me an image. I want to take an image and blend it with elements of AI art. So I use it as almost like a stock photography site, where it's like I have an image in my head of something I want to do. And like I really like doing astrophotography, but I don't have the equipment to do it, and there's only so many pictures of the Milky Way you can take. The Milky Way literally looks the same no matter what time of year, everywhere you are. Like it doesn't change. It's a literal galaxy. I mean, it does change. It just takes millions and billions of years, but we won't go into that. That's another hyperfocus.
Rabbit hole.
Yeah. And so I'm like, I really want to do more space themed things, but like, how do I do that? I can just type in like a purple galaxy, spiral galaxy. It'll generate that for me, and I can use that in my photography and my composite work. And so this last one I did was like, I typed in a prompt and I got like a really cool image as like a base. I was like, well, how can I play off this? I went through all my images, my photos that I've taken. I found one that I thought would really work cool, that when it as an image within itself, I didn't think it was good enough. Like the composition wasn't good enough to make it a good photo. And so I just took the subject and took her out of the photo and I put her in, and then I generated wings, and then I just use all my Photoshop skills to blend it all together to make one cohesive piece. And it takes a lot of work. Like it's easy just to get the prompts, but as nice as it is to use for inspiration, looking for inspiration and looking for something very specific are very different. So I spend a lot of time making the same prompt but rewording it differently to try and get, because you have no idea what the AI is going to spit out.
Interesting.
It makes some crazy stuff sometimes. So it's a lot of trial and error, but like I think it really pays off, and it's really fun to do. And you can grow inspiration as you're doing it based on these probably trash things you're getting some of the times.
Well, the image you created was really, really cool. So
thank you. I'm working on another one, which was interrupted by this podcast recording, but today is a free day for me, so it's fine. But yeah, so that is my hyper focus for these past 2 weeks. Recently, that's what we went with recently. Yeah. Do you have any that you've
yes
really been focused on?
Mine will be quick because hyper focus is not one of my like big ADHD things that I deal with. So I don't typically have a lot, but mine is the same as it is every single December. Which is what gift to get every single person in my life. Because one of my love languages, as we talked about, is gift giving. And I pride myself on giving amazing gifts because I don't like just like, oh, well, you like Starbucks, so here's a Starbucks gift card. I am like, I need to get the perfect gift for this person that they are going to love and that is going to be perfect for them. So that takes me so long, because there are a long list of people that I want to get gifts for. So I am now working my way. I have like a list on my phone that I keep on there all year. And sometimes inspiration will strike and I'll be like, oh, this person needs this. And I will get them that. And it stresses me out. And I really need to stop and just chill and just be okay with getting people gift cards sometimes. But like, I love it. But it stresses me out. So working on getting perfect gift for every person that I've ever met in my life.
That's a big task to take on.
Yes.
Here I am struggling to get a gift for my own wife. And you're like, I need to give the perfect gift for everyone ever.
Yes. And then I always feel like I have to do better than I did last year. So yeah, like when I first started going over to Justin's family's house for Christmas, because we didn't start doing that until we'd been dating for like, I don't know, 3 years or something. I was like, okay, I have to get a gift for every single person in his family. And he's got 2 brothers, his mom, his dad, his grandma comes over, and then his uncle comes over. And so that first year I was like, dear God, I barely know these people and I have to get them something perfect. And then of course I figured it out and I got them this amazing gift and they were like, oh my God. So then I was like, well, now I have to live up to that every year and get them something amazing. So
set the bar high. Yeah. Screw yourself over in the future.
Yep, pretty much.
You do a good job, though. And I will say that going back to like the love language thing, not only am I bad, because with some love languages, like you're good at giving and bad at receiving. Yeah. Like it's not always like a two-way thing with love languages. But for me, it definitely is with gift giving. Because, like, one, I feel bad when people give me gifts. Yes. Doesn't matter if it's for, like, a holiday. I just feel bad. And 2, I'm at a point in my life where, like, I cannot for the life of me think of anything that is cheap that I I want.
Yes, this is the problem I have with giving gifts for you. Because I'm like, in theory, I know what would be good. But I'm like, I just don't have $500 to drop on one gift.
Why not? No. Are you saying I'm not worth it? No. I will have you know, like you requested, I put more things on my wish list, Amazon wish list, and I did put 2 things on, which I do not want nor expect you to get.
Are they also expensive?
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
But it's like, because those are the things I want, and like I save up and like I'll get them for myself. Like I'm not asking anyone to get them; they're more like on my wish list. For like a reminder of like, yeah, like I want to go back at some point and get that.
Gotcha.
And I spent so long looking through Amazon, and like I'm so anti-consumerism that it was just a headache. It doesn't help that I was looking on Black Friday or Cyber Monday or something, and there was so much garbage, and it's like, you want this toaster that's $150 that is Bluetooth. I'm like, no, I don't.
Toaster. Yeah. Yeah. That's kind of what Mom said this year difficult. Too. When I was asking her like what she wants, she was like, I don't want like random things. I want like experiences or like time together or whatever. Yes. And I was like, oh, okay.
That is what I have come to cherish, is like we went gift shopping at the mall. We did a classic like 90s or early 2000s day out at the mall doing all the Christmas shopping. Side note, Tacoma Mall is really cool, and they're revitalizing it, and like a lot of people go, and it's actually really nice, and it's more modern, and it's not like a barren waste town. But we did that, and we were like, what do we get Mom? Our mom, not Megan's mom. And I was like, we're going out there for Christmas. We've already discussed this with her. Like, she doesn't want things. She wants experiences. And so like, why get her something that's like, oh, cool, and then you like put it on a shelf somewhere and it sits there forever and you don't do anything with it. Then when you can like create a memory, I think memories are the best gift, at least for me.
Yeah, it's harder, I feel like, to do that kind of gift when you live in a different state, because I mean, I can give you memories, but not that include me most of the time. And so like, if I'm giving you a gift, I want to be part of that. But but it's good because you're coming here this Christmas, so it'd be a little easier.
Yeah, much easier. And with that, I think we're at time.
Yeah.
So
put in the effort.
We actually,
that's the moral of today's
the biggest takeaway. Put in the effort.
Yes.
And we actually did think of an outro, and I could have just said it, but instead I'm going to talk about that we came up with it, and then I'm going to say
Make it awkward. All right.
Make it awkward. Nothing's awkward unless you make it awkward. Don't forget that the present matters, and what you do today will affect tomorrow.
See you next time.